Hey y'all, welcome to Parent Empowerment with Mandy Drogin. I'm Mandy. I'm just a mom sitting down having real conversations with real Texas parents about what's going on in our schools. And today we are honored to be joined by Erin Fonner. Erin is a mother of 3, and she is the development director at Valor Education, the classical public charter school that I actually choose to send my children to. Erin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mandy. It's great to be here.
I'm so excited. I have had the blessing to travel across the state and the nation talking about the parent empowerment movement that has truly swept Texas. And when we talk about that movement, we talk about the 4 pillars of parent empowerment, which is transparency into what a child is learning and why they're learning it, quality, a high quality education for every single child, respect for parents as the ultimate decision maker and partner in their child's education, and finally, choice. Choice that every parent should be able to make the decision on where they send their child to go to school. And I am so blessed that I made the choice, and then I got really, really lucky and won the lottery to attend public education charter school, Valor Education. So, I can't sing your praises enough, but I really wanted to share with Texans, parents, patriots, all those that watch and are a part of the parent empowerment movement, why Valor Education is my choice and why it's so special, and quite frankly, why it is just booming here in the Central Texas area. So I want to hear first and foremost why you, as a mom of 3, why did you choose Valor?
Yeah, well, I like you, won the lottery. I was so excited. I remember that day so clearly. So, it's so interesting. So I have 3 kids. They're currently in 10th and 7th and 5th. But originally, they were littles. And so I was trying really hard to focus on how do I raise these 3 tiny human beings entrusted to my care, and how do I help them become young men and women of character, right? And so we tried several different things. For a season we were homeschoolers, we did Montessori, we tried public school, a variety of different things. And I'll never forget, it was a Tuesday, and I had a really hard day homeschooling, and it was just like, what am I doing here? And so I remember, as a exhausted, overwhelmed mama, I just said a little prayer and said, God, I love the classical model, but could I have a school where they go 5 days a week, and could it be free? And then within a couple weeks, I heard about Valor. It was the leaders were opening up the first campus here in Austin, and so I immediately put our names on the list, and we're delighted when we got a spot. And so now we're going on our 7th year at Valor. So it's been amazing to watch our kids be able to grow up in such a beautiful community.
That's amazing. So you mentioned the classical model, which has really, kind of taken off in what parents are seeking. I know that here at TBPF, we did a research paper last year that we published talking about how while charter schools are growing, because parents are looking for choices, that classical model charter schools are growing 7-fold because so many parents are looking for that. So I'm going to call out a couple of names, and I would love for you to tell our viewers what all of they have in common. So okay. Galileo, Shakespeare, Darwin, Martin Luther, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson. What do all of these great leaders throughout history that we all know about, what do they all have in common?
You could say they're all classically educated.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, for years and years, centuries,
yeah.
Education was approached a certain way. And yes, there were nuances from culture to culture, but in general, there has been a proven model throughout the centuries that has brought so many incredible creative advancements in society. Mm-hmm. And it's really just in the past 100 years or so that we've really started to try new different things. And so when we talk about classical, there is a certain methodology and formative foundation
Yeah.
of things that all these leaders you mentioned are familiar with.
That's right. And that is, like you, that's what I was seeking out as well. I really wanted my children to be classically educated. I think, for such a time as this, with so many different aspects of life that have changed quickly. I mean, whether we're talking technology or globalization or so many different aspects of education, and really, from my perspective, progressive secularism that has creeped into our public education system. And so I knew that to prepare my children for a time such as this, that they needed to have the foundation of the classical model, which for our viewers that may not be familiar with that, it kind of starts at the grammar school level where we are teaching, or the leaders at classical schools are teaching grammar school, which is phonics. We're really teaching kids the knowledge, the foundation that they need to then go into kind of the logic step of learning, where you're understanding how to think, how to process, how to spot logical arguments and logical fallacies, quite frankly, which unfortunately I feel like we're inundated with more than ever, particularly with social media. And then finally, rhetoric, that ability to articulate why you feel and think a certain way based on facts. And so that's kind of the progression of the classical schools. So when we talk about the parent empowerment movement and transparency, one of the aspects of Valor that I know that is so important to parents is how transparent you are. And I can remember the first time that I ever saw the reading list of Valor, and I have it here for when I had a kindergartner. She's now in second grade, just started recently. And I looked through all of these books, The Snowy Day, Blueberries for Sal, which is one of my personal favorites.
So sweet.
It's so sweet, and I learned so much. Winnie the Pooh, The Velveteen Rabbit. I mean, all of these books that have truly withstood the test of time. And then, of course, we go into others. First grade was The Tale of Peter Rabbit. Second grade, which we're now in, we're getting into Little House on the Prairie and Stone Fox and Sarah Plain and Tall, and it goes on and on. But that transparency aspect. So can you talk to me a little bit? We have their reading lists, which are public, right? They are for public consumption. Everybody can go online and see those. Also, their memorization list, their poetry memorization. So talk to me a little bit about Valor's view on being transparent about what's going on in the schools and what kids are learning and why they're learning it.
Yeah, well, we really start with a place of respect for every person, and particularly for parents as the primary educators of their children. Yes, we know that parents are choosing to entrust their precious children to our care for 5 days a week, during school hours, but ultimately, it is the parents who really are the ones who are the primary educators. And so we want to partner with that. We want to help empower parents, just like you're doing, right? In a slightly different way, but with the same heart behind it, in helping them better understand what their children are learning, why they're learning it, how parents can be involved. And so, so we have the book lists. We have weekly newsletters that come from each individual teacher in the lower school. We also have a school newsletter that has an inspiring intro letter from our headmaster, as well as ways that parents can get involved during the week. We really, our purpose statement is to educate the whole person in authentic communities for a full human life. So when we talk about authentic communities, the parents are a huge part of that. Yeah. And so we want them to know what their children are learning. We want them to be involved in their child's education. And that's really, really essential. And so I think just even starting just with that conviction and that belief that parents are essential in this. And what we have found is that every student can truly thrive at Valor. And they thrive even more when the parents are involved in thriving as well. We don't want this to just be the students. We want this to be something that our entire community is thriving together.
I think that's wonderful. And I'll tell you from my personal experience and the transparency aspect, it's not just the reading lists or the poetry lists or the books that are readily available or the lesson plans, but that transparency in what's expected the culture that's expected. The bar is high, and the kids from every demographic across every race and socioeconomic status, they are there in the classrooms, and that transparency really focused on a high quality education,
right?
Keeping that pop culture and a lot of the culture wars out of the classroom, and that is so important. And I think parents, that's one of the reasons why they are seeking Valor out. It's why I did as well. So that transparency is there. You are showing parents, you are providing them with the information their child is learning and why, the culture and why. And so the second aspect of the parent empowerment movement is quality. Every single child, regardless of their zip code, the street they live on, the money in their parents' bank account, their race, or any other factor, every child in Texas deserves a high quality education. And when I was looking at kind of how the curriculum at a glance, when I was first learning about Valor, that really stood out to me because I had done research on a lot of the really great private schools in the area, and it was so similar in that curriculum. So I saw that starting in the elementary ages, there was that focus on Singapore math and phonics, which that's my number one go-to. When a parent says, "How did you make a choice?" I say, ask them if they're teaching phonics. But let's talk a little bit about the high quality education that is available. Again, you're a public school. People have this misconception. One, they think that Valor's not public. It is. But as a public school, you all offer really rigorous, high quality education that's available to every single child. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, there are two things you mentioned. Gosh, there's so many things I want to talk about. Let me start with one. We were at a private school for a season, and we chose to leave that private school and go to Valor for several reasons, but two in particular. And you mentioned both of them. One is that idea of diversity and bringing people together. I wanted my children to be able to be prepared to go on into life and to be able to understand different perspectives and to truly to learn from one another. And that is one of my favorite things about Valor is because, like you said, people, because we're an open enrollment, tuition-free charter school, people, as long as there's certain ISDs that Valor serves, and as long as you live in one of those ISDs, which there are several, then you can apply and put your child's name on the list, for the lottery or on the wait list, and then eventually, you might get offered a spot as the spots become available. And so there's a beautiful diversity, and my kids are better for that. Yeah. I think there's a real gift to our family in that regard. And then another thing, you mentioned the rigor. And so, classical education can sometimes be known for rigor. The thing I love about Valor is that we do set the bar high, but we help every child get there. And that's maybe what can be different in other schools. Like some schools set the bar really high, but if it's not for you, well, it's not for you. But I really, because of the open enrollment and because of the welcoming of such a diverse group of students, we really work with each child and we try something out. Okay, that didn't work. Let's try something else, and let's get you the support you need. So I think those are two really important things. You mentioned Singapore math. I'm a huge Singapore math fan. I brought some materials.
Okay, let's see them.
So Singapore, I'm sure you probably know, Singapore has been praised for years and years because their students' math outcomes, math scores are just off the charts. And
they're number one in the world.
They started to get global recognition. Like, what are you guys doing over there in Singapore? And so, curriculum has been adopted over the years, but this is just an example. I'm trying to think of something fun. Just all the color and stuff. I can't find it right now, but there are these things. Bar models. I love bar models so much. So this is essentially teaching your fourth grader or third grader or second grader or kindergartner pre-algebra in a way, without, there's no X, there's no Y, but it's helping them understand. So it's, taking these little, like a single cube or maybe a 10 bar or 100, or they've got a thousands cube, and it's helping students visually understand the concepts.
Right.
So they start with the conceptual, and then they go to pictorial, like you saw there with the bar graphs, and then eventually they go to abstract, which is the equations.
Yes.
When I learned math, I just memorized the steps, and I didn't really understand what I was doing. And so as I've been more familiar with Singapore over the years, this is Dimensions, just one version of Singapore, math, I felt like someone finally got inside my head and learned how to teach me like how this works, because it is so important that we understand conceptually how math works, not just the steps.
I think that's so valuable. So in first grade last year with my oldest, obviously Singapore math starts at kindergarten, and I remember, kind of working on some of the worksheets and looking over, because Valor always sends home, here's what we're going to be working on, and kind of to help mom and dad make sure that we know. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, even at the first grade level, things that we, intuitively know at this point because we understand the basics of math, I was like, didn't know that.
Never thought about it that way.
Never thought about it that way. So it really was something that was fascinating. And now that, as she moved through it, I was like, I wish somebody would have showed me how that this is what it is. Because I am very much a tactile learner.
Yeah.
And
me
that
too.
would have been very helpful.
Well, and, a couple other things going back to the idea of a quality education, we talk a lot about educating the whole person. Well, what does that mean? So we have things, you mentioned tactile learning, like each week our students go out and do nature studies as part of their science program. And I just love that. So they have their little science journal. And I just saw the kids out there the other day, observing a snail next to the fountain in the courtyard, or observing a tree, and how these little puffy things were coming off the edge of the branch. And they were wondering why the puffy thing on the end. And so they were asking good questions, and it was sparking wonder. And our 9th graders and our 11th graders, we send them out to Moab, Utah, and they go backpacking for a week.
So I had this,
it's gorgeous, right?
I love seeing the videos of it. And yes, it is. It's gorgeous. And that experience of these kids that get to go out and experience nature and wonder and the world, it's really amazing, and it's something that, while I'm not wishing away the years because they're going too fast, it is exciting to be able to see kind of these opportunities in the higher grade levels in the high school. So
no, it's huge, and it's big because not only do they develop a deep appreciation for the beauty, the natural beauty around them, but the friendships form, the formation there of the community is so powerful. So we really love that. Another thing that our high schoolers do is it's called the Integrated Humanities Program, IHP. And so we integrate literature and history. And so we learn it together in the historical context around a particular book and the implications that book and that author had in his or her day, and then also how they apply to us today. And so it's a Socratic discussion. And so the teacher is a guide, and they all sit facing each other, and it's all questions based. So the teacher will usually write 2 or 3 questions on the board and kind of kick it off. And then the students lead the discussion. And it is amazing to be a fly on the wall in those rooms when they're having a seminar discussion, and just the truths and the conclusions that they're able to discover on their own. And also, as you were mentioning earlier, helping them to really learn how to think and to defend a position and why they choose this position, and to listen respectfully when someone has a differing opinion. I mean, that seems so common sense, but it's huge. It's huge to be able to engage in that kind of discourse and to have that kind of character and respect for one another, that even if we don't agree, we can listen and engage in dialogue. And so that is a real core feature of our high school, our upper school program, 9th through 12th grade.
Yes. I mean, right now, more than ever, we talk about kind of the divisiveness that has permeated society, and the discourse, and kind of where we are, and the inability to look at facts, spot logical fallacies, answer questions based on what is true versus what maybe someone feels or what they wish could be true, and things like that. So I absolutely love that, to be able to engage in discourse, which will obviously prepare them as they launch into the world. And that's what we are all working towards, right? So we talked a little bit about Singapore math and why that's important, and how Singapore is ranked #1 in the world. And I think that's really, really important when we're looking at, quite frankly, across the state at our test scores, where 60% of kids can't do math on grade level. And I hear this from parents all the time. And quite frankly, I hear this from those in our business communities, the workforce development aspect of it, where kids are woefully unprepared to enter into the workforce, enter into the career and technical trades, because they don't have that foundation in math. And that is really, really important as we are addressing the parent empowerment movement. And educational reform is 60% of kids not being able to do math is just not okay. So from my perspective, that was a really, really key component. Another thing that we talk a little bit about is phonics. So I am a phonics hawk. It breaks my heart when we look at the fact that across Texas, 50% of kids cannot read on grade level. If you cannot read on grade level by the third grade, then there is a 97% guarantee you will never catch up. And that is just, it is a curse. It is a generational curse for far too many kids. And so we have 50 years worth of data that says that phonics is the far superior method to teaching reading. So what method of phonics does Valor choose to use?
So we use Spalding is our curriculum for phonics. And so it's kindergarten through fifth grade. They go through and it builds on itself each year. So there's a consistent curriculum across. And yes, it starts with breaking down it into the different, sounds and
yes.
exactly. And breaking it into parts and then learning the rules about when does a G say G versus J, and how the silent E on the end and all the different,
Yes.
rules that apply to the silent E. And so it tries to take English, which is a very complicated language, and make some sense out of it all, and bring it back to the root origins of several of the words and the various meanings. And so it helps over the years for the students to have a methodology and a structure to help them learn how to read, because some kids just pick it up. They, they can do the sight words and they just go, and a lot of kids can't. So what do you do with the kids that can't? And I actually have one of my kids has a 504, which means he is dyslexic, and I will never forget. So my mom is a retired public school teacher, 30 years, and she was a special ed teacher. And when she saw what we were doing at Valor with Spalding, she said, I am so grateful for this program because you're starting at kindergarten with everyone.
Yeah.
You're not waiting for the 504 and just giving them some sort of special foundation. This is setting the foundation for every student.
Yeah.
So whether they struggle with reading or not, they all have the same foundation. And it helps those that end up, we find out later, oh, you are struggling a little bit with reading.
Right.
They already have that foundation. You don't have to back up and start over. And so it's been really powerful.
It is. And it's something, in doing research for my own children, and when I was selecting a school again, looking into Spalding phonics, I was doing research and I came across this, I don't know if I'd call it a factoid or whatnot, but when I was in school, and I remember learning a couple rules, and the rule that I feel like in our generation we heard all the time, which was I before E, except after C, and never in neighbor in way. And it was pointed out when I was doing the research that is factually inaccurate. that is not, whoever came up with this rhyme and this rule, just how that it is not true. And I was like, oh man, it would have made so much sense if I would have learned. I mean, I guess I learned the basics of, b, and k and whatnot, but really understanding the makeup of the English language was so important, and I love that about phonics. And again, teach phonics. Mom and dad, ask your schools if they're teaching phonics. It is the far superior method to learn how to read, and that is a key that is really, really important to making sure that every child has a high-quality education.
And I would add to that, when parents are looking for schools, I would also encourage, this was advice given to me when we were trying to figure out what to do for our kids' education. Look at the reading list. Look at the book list. Like you mentioned earlier, that is on our website, valoreducation.org, and it is really important to know what are your kids, because we love a good story.
Yes.
Stories are powerful.
Really.
And stories really shape who we are and what we believe. And so it's really, really good as a parent to know what stories will your child be exposed to.
It is. It's crucial. A lot of times what I talk to parents about all the time is really inappropriate materials in libraries. It's heartbreaking. And inappropriate materials in classrooms. We just sat and watched at the Democratic National Convention. A teacher stood up and she said, I went into education because I saw it was the greatest opportunity, greatest vehicle for social justice. And I thought, that is not what education is for. But unfortunately, again, that mentality has seeped into far too many schools, and parents oftentimes do not realize that their children are being exposed to really inappropriate materials or age inappropriate materials at far too young ages when they're not able to truly understand what's going on. So I think that is key with transparency and quality. And the quality, so something else that I was going to point to is Latin. One of the other awesome things that, again, every child can learn, including from kindergarten, is Latin. That's how my daughter says it, Latin. And in Latin. And I think it's just amazing. I never had Latin.
Nor did I.
But when you realize that is the foundation for 65% of English words and the foundation of all the Romance languages, Spanish, Italian, all these languages that our kids oftentimes go on to learn in higher grades, it makes so much sense and it makes it so much easier, right?
It does. Well, and it's fun to watch my kids make the different connections. They'll hear a word in English and they're like, oh, the root of that is, whatever in Latin, and this is what it means. And it's like, wow, that's amazing. And, I think it also helps on a lot of SATs and standardized tests because there are big, complicated words in English. And if they know the root of Latin, that's kind of a side benefit. But I do think there's something beautiful, too, in just learning that there is a thing in front of us, and we, immersed in our English American culture, just see it as, a bottle of water. But to learn it in a different language, particularly in Latin, which has so much history associated with it, and can then, you can go into so many different languages from there. It is just even conceptually to understand that our words are just our attempt to try to communicate about something real that we can all experience, and we use our words to be able to share that experience together, to do that in another language and to do it in Latin, and even starting in kindergarten. In kindergarten, they're doing chants and songs and sweet
row your boat. It's adorable. It is. It's adorable. We're saying, that's it. I remember. I was like, right.
So it's sweet. And then, of course, they get more advanced and they learn the grammar and a lot of the grammatical foundation can help them be better English speakers as well. And so it is really foundational in terms of helping them on so many different levels, and it's really core to our school program.
I want to hit again, these are children. This is a public school with children from every background. You don't get to cherry pick kids.
No.
You don't get to move anybody up off a wait list. You can't just say you are. In fact, it's funny because here in Austin, I know so many amazing people that are advocating for parental empowerment, and oftentimes themselves or their staff members or those in other education reform organizations and things like that. They're going, I want to get in. And it's like, I'm got to get on that lottery, because every single child, and that really does hammer home the importance of an education, a classical education, and that every child really can do this. This is not something that is for the elite,
right?
Like people might assume.
Yeah,
every child, every background can achieve and succeed and reach that bar that is set high, because you provide the foundation and you really facilitate a love of learning, which is what I see a classical education really does, and why I sought that out, is that wonder. I mean, I still love to learn. I love to learn now more than I did when I was a kid, because now a lot of it, makes sense, but y'all do that from a young age, and classical education does that.
Yeah, no, it is really powerful to see these kids come alive and wonder. I mean, so much. So our motto, speaking of Latin, is Sapientia per admirationem, which means wisdom through wonder. And this idea that the purpose of education ultimately is wisdom and virtue. It ultimately is to become good human beings that can be good spouses, good employees, good neighbors, good parents, good friends. Like, that is such an important part of us imparting our values and onto our children, so that they can come and grow up and contribute and live full human lives
and be free. And right?
To be free.
Let's talk. This is the foundation of Western civilization. When we look at the development of the world, and we're talking about this, as you can look back in history, which kids do learn. You really see how I named off Galileo, who was imprisoned because of his views, and then you're like, oh, you're right. Right. And then Shakespeare, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, you can look back over time and look over the centuries and even thousands and go, oh, all of this love of learning, we see how Western civilization was developed, where, again, I talk about this, America is the most benevolent and free nation that ever existed. We are the shining city on the hill. And the reason for that is because we facilitate what you were just talking about, the development of a child that grows and learns to engage and to participate and be a good person in all different facets. So I think that's really important to continue to hammer, is that classical education is not new.
Right.
It really is the foundation of Western civilization.
And it's valuable and accessible for everyone.
Everyone can do this.
Yes,
You're
everyone
a public
can
school.
do this, and we want everyone to come. Like, we really, really do. And we have a uniform policy.
Yes.
So we you mentioned earlier, we try to keep pop culture out of the classroom. We don't have smartphones or tablets in the classroom. We really, really want to help kind of level the playing field so that everyone truly is welcome and everyone truly can succeed, and everyone truly can participate. And so it is really neat to, see the kids. I've seen this in some of my kids' friends. They care a lot about what brand shoes they're wearing or what brand purse they're carrying or something like that. And they do that because they want to be known and they want to be accepted and they want to be loved. And so one thing I love about Valor is this idea of we have what we call the Valor Way, which is eight life principles. And so the first one talks about how we affirm the goodness of the world and the intrinsic value of every person. And this idea of you don't have to wear a certain thing to be known and loved and accepted and valued. You don't have to even believe a certain thing to be known and loved and accepted and valued. Like, you are valuable because you're human. And let's start there. There's a deep, deep, deep level of respect. And that really leads to joy and freedom, where people truly can, the students really can begin to grow and wonder because they feel free to be able to ask questions and free to be creative and to engage in a way that is truly authentic. And so that I think is really, really helpful, that not only is everyone welcome to apply through the lottery, like to put their name in the hat for the lottery, but that every student actually can thrive.
Yes.
Because of the way that we've set up the school culture. We talk a lot about a school culture of joy, of respect, and of deep engagement. And so this idea of, we're not anti-technology by any means. We believe there's a place for technology. I mean, my kids play video games on the weekends. Like, there's no judgment here, right? But there is a certain attentiveness and presence that we really value at Valor in the classroom and with one another. We have certain standards that we as leadership and faculty hold ourselves to, that if we're on a Zoom call, we're not multitasking, which that takes discipline, but there's also, I've heard so many stories of teachers that have come from other schools to Valor and just saying, I just want to teach. But in my previous school, I was constantly fighting up against the technology. And so there's a time and a place for technology. Absolutely. Yeah. We want our students to be able to be equipped to use these tools that are, constantly changing and evolving and are very helpful in many ways. But there's a beauty in starting with the respect for the person, that I'm going to put down this phone and I'm going to look you in the eye and I'm going to give you my full attention because what you have to say is important. Yeah. And there's a deep love and respect for the uniforms. Let's all start from a place of equality so that we can truly get to know one another and say, oh, wow, that's fascinating. And I love what you just thought about that book that we just read or that science experiment we just did. I don't love you because of the shoes you're wearing. Right. So I think there's just some goodness that we all crave. We all crave to be part of a community. We all crave to know and to learn and to grow and to be accepted for who we are and to really be valued as human beings in that shared experience. But it takes a certain intentional school culture to be able to make that happen. I think that's so important. And that takes us to the third pillar of parent empowerment. So we've talked about transparency into what children are learning and why they are learning it or reading or memorizing. We've talked about quality, a really high quality, rigorous education that every single child in Texas deserves access to. Now I want to talk about respect. The third pillar of parent empowerment is respect. And
you've kind of jumped into that with parents, students, and teachers. So ultimately, respect for parents as the decision maker in their child's education. But we can use that term respect for teachers and then obviously for students, because that is so, so important. And you're talking about it now. So with parents, you show them all of the information so they know what and why. And they know that their child's going to get a really great education. You keep them updated. One of the things that I love about Valor and that the culture aspect that so many parents seek this out again, and it really is respect for parents, is shutting out that pop culture, shutting out a lot of the, quite frankly, age inappropriate conversations that children should not be asked to engage in because they don't have the foundations or the facts, and ensuring that kids, I put it up there. That's my daughter's uniform right there. At least her shirt. And the purpose of that was, one, it makes life a lot easier in the mornings,
doesn't it? The mornings go
man.
Over the summer, we had a summer camp without a uniform, and it made me appreciate the uniform so much.
Right.
I mean,
Same.
oh my gosh, the stress of having to pick the outfit.
Same. And let's be, my daughter is very girly, so there are, she can wear socks with the Valor plaid. That's the Valor plaid trim, or the bow, or blue. There is some freedom of expression, but it doesn't put any child in a position where they have to defend liking a character, or defend having a certain brand, or defend the income of the parent, or the ability. And it's just wonderful that it's not even a discussion.
They don't even know.
They don't even know, and they don't care.
What
they don't know, and they don't
income
care
of each other's parents
That's
are.
exactly
it's
right.
not even a thing.
It's not a thing. They get to focus on education. So just the respect for parents is so, so crucial. The respect that is developed for the individual, and the ability to disagree and to have differences of opinion, and being able to back those up. But also, I really want to talk about this, and you touched on it, respect for teachers. So one of the things that I love in talking with one of the founders of Valor, which was the amount of attention and love that they pour into teachers, and preparing teachers, and ensuring that they have what they need to educate a class, but also ensuring that they're backed up in discipline, that the administration kind of has the teacher's back and is there to, quite frankly, really protect and support the teacher. And I remember hearing that, and in my mind, it took me back to, so at that point, my son was just about a year old when we started at Valor. And I can remember hearing my husband, who, when I've had 3 children, whenever I've given birth, he has always been there to, of course, he loves and dotes on his children, but he really sees his job as to protect me when I'm, if I need water, or if I need 4 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or whatever. And I remember hearing, and I came home and talked about it, I was like, it's kind of the way that oftentimes husbands kind of have to protect their wives, because the wife, especially when you're breastfeeding a new baby and trying to do all these things, like, he just saw his role as making sure that I was okay. And I that was the analogy that popped in my head. And it has created teachers that love being at Valor from everything that I can see. And the parents pour into them, and the admin pours in them. And that means they get to pour into the little minds that are in their classrooms. And I just personally love that. But I want to hear from you about what y'all are hearing from teachers. And from what I understand, there are a lot of teachers that have said, I want to be in the public education sphere, and I want to go teach at Valor because they do provide that respect for the teachers. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah, and it's so right. We have a joke at our home that says, "If Mama's going down, we're all going down."
Right, that's not right. That's true. Bring the mask. We got to take you if the mask falls.
Put your mask on first. That's right.
Put your mask on first. That's the teachers. We got to take care of the teachers.
We got to take care of our
that's
teachers. Right. Yes. And you're right. We do. We have been inundated with applications for teachers wanting to teach at Valor this year. It's been really neat. The word has gotten out, and from all over the country, people are moving to Austin and San Antonio to work at Valor, which is amazing. Really amazing. Yeah.
It speaks very highly of the education and the culture that's been created there.
And I mean, it's not perfect. we are still
Nothing
a growing
is.
school. Nothing
Sure.
is. There's no perfect school. So
Right.
I want to be real that, there are still things that we are aware of and working on. But yes, we kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, that idea of intrinsic value and respect for the person. Starting there, we do so much. We don't see our teachers as a means to an end. We don't think, oh, we've got this classroom of kids, so we got to put a teacher in there and go check the box. Like, no, we start with them as a person. And what sets you on fire? Like, what does a full life look like for you, teacher? And so we talk a lot about faculty life and faculty formation. And so we have, Valor has an institute, the Valor Institute. It's small and it's focused on faculty formation, actually, is the primary focus. We also, the Institute has a role in curriculum and in student life as well. But the primary focus right now of the Institute is on forming our faculty as people, because we know that we have to if we want our students to become men and women of virtue, we have to put teachers of virtue in front of them. Because it's not just what the curriculum says. It is the full school program. It is the full school culture. It is the full experience. And most importantly, the relationships that really influence our students. And so we choose our faculty very carefully. And then we welcome them in and we train them a lot. Our professional development is not just how to teach Singapore math, right? How to, use manipulatives. It's very much, let's start with you. And so we have fun things. We have dinners and discussions where we'll read a book together. We have seminars. So roughly every other Friday, we let the kids out a few hours early. So they get an early release Friday. And then we as faculty stay and break into small groups and discuss a book. Because if we're asking the students to do this. And you get fed, right? And we get really good food. We love food at Valor. We love food at Valor because there's something about sharing a meal together and coming around together. It just creates community. Right. And authentic communities is part of our purpose statement. And so we eat a lot of really good food. A lot of times it's the parents bringing in food. I mean, we have rock star parents. They're the best.
They really are. I mean, it's so they're you can get sign up lists and volunteer to things. And I don't have a ton of time to cook, but I'm always like, what can I eat? Like, here's all the plates you need, or here's
plates and utensils.
I don't bake. I can cook. I don't bake, and I'm like, I can go and buy the really good food at a bakery for y'all.
Thank you for that. We are so grateful. I mean, I tell you what, it is funny. And some of our
amazing.
younger teachers,
all the parents,
they can eat. So it is good to have lots of food.
It is. Well, I love it. It warms my heart because whenever I, see the emails and the opportunity to be able to try and bless our teachers for what they do, and I can go on there, and sometimes there's not anything available. It's all because the parents really do want to jump in, and because we know what they're doing. And like you, I'm not. God bless the mothers that homeschool, but that is not my calling in life. And so take whatever you need, and it's really that community that's been developed because of the respect for parents, and that they can then pour into the teachers, who then can pour into the kids, and it's beautiful.
And I think another way that we respect our teachers is through our the campus order that we really prioritize. And order kind of gets a bad rap, discipline, but at Valor, we talk a lot about how order leads to joy. And, you can't there's a great analogy about, kids playing on, I forget who it was I need to look up the source, but, kids playing on like a cliff, playing on a cliff. And so they're away from the edge of the cliff, and there's like a fence around them, and they're just playing and having a great time. And then you take the kids and you put them right on the edge of the cliff, and they're real still. And so that's kind of a good picture of like the fence away from the cliff. They feel safe. There's a structure, there's an order, and even in our kids, this is something I see so much that our society struggles with attention, and our society struggles with anxiety. And there's a lot out there that is really hard because we're constantly being stimulated. And so this idea of order really helps because the students and the teachers know what to expect. They know what's expected of them, and they know what to expect. And so they kind of relax into it. It becomes familiar. It becomes safe. And so the teachers, because we work really hard to establish a certain order that leads to joy, they can actually really teach, and they're not having to deal with the problems and the outbursts all the time because the students really relax into, like, this is how we do school.
This is right.
And this is what's expected. And it's it's really done in a loving way. And so, we're at the beginning of the school year, and my mom always told me, like, a good teacher starts the school year strict, and over time, maybe can loosen things up, but you can't, if you start, with more loosey-goosey, you can't tighten it up later. Back. It's hard to regain that. And so we're in that season, and there is an intentionality that we need to establish expectations, but I think that is a way that we respect our teachers.
Yep.
Because then that frees them up to be able to do what they're so good at and teach our children.
That's right. Well, I love that. So we've gone through transparency, quality, respect, and then the fourth pillar of parent empowerment is choice. I talk about this all the time. I had chosen to enroll when I didn't know if we would get into Valor, because I had to apply for the lottery, and we went ahead and enrolled my daughter in a classical private school. And so I vividly remember that email, right? And I screamed up to my husband, "We won the lottery!" And also thinking, oh, thankfully, we're here. We made that choice to be there. And every family in Valor, you're not zoned there, right? You're not zoned. You make a choice. You make a choice to put your name in the hat to get the lottery.
No one comes by default.
That's right. You
have to make a choice.
You have to make a choice to be there. And that was the choice that I made. And I'm so grateful for that choice. And it's why I have locked arms with parents, millions of parents across Texas, regardless of if they're homeschool parents, private school parents, public school parents, to really, really advocate for parents to be that ultimate decision maker and to, quite frankly, have the choice to make the best decision for their own individual child. Because while I'm a huge proponent, obviously, of a classical education, that might not be the right choice for every child, and that's okay too. And I believe that parents, that they have that fundamental right and the freedom to make those choices. So let's talk about the choice to go to Valor. Again, it's a public school. It's a public charter school. So the way that works for anybody that doesn't understand is if you have a certain capacity at a school, and if you receive more applications, then it goes into a lottery. That it's just computerized, it's random, right? It goes random. In. There's not somebody even drawing numbers. A computer just goes and spits out a whole bunch of names, right? And says, here's who it is, and parents can accept or decline. And then if you're on the wait list. So let's talk about what you've seen in the past 7 years and where we are now, because there's an interesting fact about where Valor is right now and the choices that parents are trying to make in regards to your wait list, right? So I know that across Texas, there's about 77,000 children on charter school wait lists.
Wow.
So that's 77,000 parents that want a choice. They have said for one reason or another, their assigned school is not the education they want for their child, whether it's bullying or the culture, or we talked about the fact that 50% of kids can't read on grade level, 60% can't do math. So for charter schools specifically, 77,000 parents have said, I want something else, and I can't get it.
Right.
Because they can't pick up a move, they can't strike the check, whatever it is. So let's talk about where Valor specifically fits into that. So 7 years ago, Valor opened.
6 years ago. Is that right? Yeah, 6 years ago. Okay. So that we're starting our 7th. Yeah.
Okay, got it. And so how many kids at this point are enrolled in Valor Education?
So we have 5 schools.
Okay.
So we have Valor South Austin was our first school, and then Valor North Austin, then Valor Kyle, then Valor Leander, and Valor San Antonio. So those are our 5.
Yeah.
We've launched these 5 schools. Now we're in the process of trying as quickly as possible to build them out to capacity. So this year we welcomed 4,100 kids into Valor schools this year.
That's amazing.
Our largest ever. Last year we were at 3,300. So this year 4,100 students are at Valor. Our wait list is 5,500. So we have more kids on our wait list than we do in our schools. Like, we cannot open these buildings fast enough. Like, we are trying so hard to serve these parents who have made a choice.
Right.
We just can't serve them.
And what is one of the reasons that for parents who have made the choice that have sought out the classical education, specifically at Valor, but there's other great classical schools, classical charter schools and things like that. But for those families, oh my goodness, those over 5,000. So you have more families on the wait list, more kids on a wait list than you're able to serve. So what is one of the reasons, because I actually hear this a lot around Texas, people who love the classical model and they get it. They're like, can we make all public schools that? Can we do this? What's one of the reasons that Valor is unable to meet the wishes right now of those over 5,000 kids that would love the opportunity to have this incredible high quality classical education?
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's a lot of people don't understand exactly what is a charter school. They know it's a public school, but a lot of people think it's a private school. Okay, where's the money coming from? Right? There's lots of questions around it. So the big difference between a charter school and the local ISD school down the street is, yes, we both get funding from the state of Texas based on enrollment. The local ISD schools also get local tax dollars. So if you're a homeowner, you may notice, every year you're sending a bunch of money to the schools.
I'm going to stop you real quick. So that's INS, that's interest in sinking. And so local school districts, lots of people, they're saying it right now because they're gearing up, that they can pass bonds, right?
Right.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that our viewers understand kind of what it is. So right now, charter schools get significantly less money than traditional public schools because they don't get that INS funding.
We don't get the local tax dollars.
The local tax dollars for facilities.
Right. So so that's the thing. So we get funding from the state based on enrollment. And so when a student is sitting in a seat, that's when the funding kicks in.
Right.
But we first have to have the seats, which therefore we have to have the infrastructure to have the seats.
Yeah.
And so that is where private philanthropy comes in, and that's where we need facilities funding desperately.
Right.
Desperately, because we have a lot of challenges in order to even get to the place where we can serve the kids. And so we're trying as fast as possible, and that is actually, that's what why I get up in the morning is because, like I said earlier, I used to homeschool my kids, and I used to think, well, as long as I send these 3 people out into society, I've done my job. But that's not the case. Like this is a societal challenge that we are dealing with right now. And so education is such a powerful way to help find solutions to the challenges that we have today. And so I am trying to get more Valor schools to capacity and then eventually open more Valor schools because yes, I'm so grateful as a mom that my kids get to experience this, but I want everyone's kids, if the parent chooses.
If they choose it, right?
To be able to have access to this beautiful education that my kids are getting.
Yeah.
But we can't, it is very challenging as a charter school because the funding doesn't unlock until the students are in the school.
Right. So you rely, there are so many incredible philanthropic donors that have seen what you and I have seen, and we're able to help kind of facilitate the startup of this school and what it has, and then it's grown and parents are asking for it. And again, 77,000 kids on charter school wait lists. Parents they're demanding this. They're demanding education like Valor. They are taxpayers. They are raising the next generation of Texas. And you say this, I get asked this a lot because I feel so incredibly blessed that we have access to this education. And so why do I do what I do? Why do I get up every day and talk to parents, talk to taxpayers, educate legislators? Why do we do this when my kids are fine? They're going to be great. I'm so excited. Thank goodness I can drop them off in the mornings and say, go, because again, homeschooling's not my jam. And it's because I want every child to have access to an incredible education. And while we have some amazing public schools across Texas, and I really try and hammer this home that this is not a competition between public schools or charter schools. It's not a competition between public schools and private schools. It really is about recognizing that each individual child is different, and each individual child, their parents know and love them the most, and they should be able to make these decisions that you and I get to make, and that 4,000 plus other parents have gotten to make, it, specifically in Valor. But then, there's hundreds of thousands that are choosing charter schools. There's over 500,000 that choose homeschool or whatever it is, but really that recognizing a parent's right, that freedom to make those decisions is so, so crucial. And that is what the parent empowerment movement is about. It is about recognizing that, one, it's okay to talk about where there are issues that need to be solved. And number two, it's about recognizing that parents must be empowered, and they must have the option. It's one thing, I hear this all the time, we already have choices in Texas. Well, if you're one of those 77,000 parents on the charter school wait list, you don't feel like you have a choice.
I mean, that's the reality.
That's the reality. If you
schools
can't
don't pop
pick up
overnight. And so if you really want to give parents the ability to choose, you have to focus on the infrastructure.
Yeah.
We have to build great schools.
Yeah.
And I hope that we have great public schools and great private schools and great homeschools and micro schools and charter schools.
All of it.
We need all of it. We have
of it.
all kinds of kids. We need all kinds of schools.
That's it. That's it right there. We need all of it. We need to make sure that every child is being served. And that is, again, what this parent empowerment movement is all about. And I cannot reiterate how grateful I am to all of Valor Education for providing this incredible education. And I cannot thank the legislators and the leaders, the SBOE members, those that are really looking at the classical model and saying, hey, this works. It worked for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And we can do this across Texas, and we should be pursuing that. But right now, we have to recognize 77,000 families are on charter school wait lists. Millions of families are saying, there might be a better way. And there's millions of kids right now with their hiney tails sitting in desks, and they can't read. Like when we talk about 50% of kids that cannot read on grade level, we have over 5.5 million kids in our Texas public schools. That means over 2 million children right now in our schools cannot read on grade level. And I'm so passionate about empowering parents because parents know and love their children best. And this is the next generation of Texas. This is the next generation of the leaders in our country and, quite frankly, the free world that protects Western civilization. And so, again, I just cannot express my gratitude to everyone that is really seeking to improve outcomes for kids. So before we wrap up, I would love for you to look in that camera right there and talk to the parents and the patriots of Texas, those that are interested in ensuring that children who want access, or that parents that want access to a classical education, they can do it, and why that empowering parents with choices and ensuring that they truly have the choice, meaning that funding follows their child, including facilities funding, including what is needed to educate them, why it's so important that they're active in their child's life and active in pushing for what is necessary to improve the education across our state.
Well, hi there. Nice to meet you. Thank you for listening or watching today. And I just want to, first of all, if you're a parent out there, just say, yes, it's hard. It is hard as a parent to raise children. I don't think we have it all figured out. And so I'm really grateful that you are interested in learning more, that you want to be empowered to choose the best choice for your child. Just even acknowledging that is such a huge, important step as your parent's guardian. And so thank you for that. And yes, we need to come together. We need to, like I said, we need to create more great schools. We need to improve the education of our kids here in the state of Texas and help them have access at every level to the education that will help them thrive. Our society depends on it. Human flourishing depends on it. Our freedom depends on it. And their joy depends on it, our joy. And this is something where we really have an opportunity through education to help people truly be free from bullying, free from being addicted to a smartphone, be free to express their thoughts and their questions and wonder about things and to laugh and to dream. And there are all these great things, but it starts with education, and it starts with you as their primary educator. And so I just hope that you learn more about charter schools, learn more about school choice, learn more about all the different dynamics and options out there for your child. And I do hope that we can really unlock funding and that we can come together to prioritize education, because our children there are a lot of challenges that they are facing that even we didn't have to face when we were children. And so we want to help them. We want to support them so that they can thrive.
Thank you, Erin, for being here. Thank you again for being a part of the team that is educating my children. Thank you all for joining us on Parent Empowerment with Mandy Drogin. And now you have the power.